Hi everyone, it's me, Ron Peroni again. Today's video was going to be about birdhouses, but we changed our minds because one of Track's security cameras caught some entertaining video the other night in front of where we keep our raptor ambassadors. Barred owls. A family of the birds came in to visit and hung around for a couple of hours, so I condensed the footage so we could share it with you as part of a video about barred owls. Check out their eyes at the top right of the screen when they land on top of the building. They appear to be glowing. In the past, we have had a number of people ask us about this phenomena. Of course, they don't really glow, but the retinas in their eyes are extremely light reflective and they're very large. And the light coming from the infrared cameras makes the birds look like little flying jack-o'-lanterns. These wild birds live nearby and brought their recently fledged youngsters along. I am not sure of what their intentions were, maybe just a social visit, but more probably they were enforcing a territorial boundary. Oops, that was almost a collision there. So, in a little bit, Wendy is going to introduce you to our ambassador barred owls. But before she does that, here's a little information about how owls hear. I hope you find this as interesting as we do.
As you've seen, barred owls can be active at night, so they rely on their ears as much as their eyes to locate prey in the dark. Their ability to locate the direction of the sounds is better than humans by a lot. Here's why. First, they don't have bare flaps of skin for ears on their heads like us. Instead, they have a ruff of feathers that forms a disc that sticks out on each side, and they can move the shape of this facial disc and use it to focus on sound just like a horse or a dog does when they move their ears. This disc forms a groove which funnels the sound into the ear hole, which hides behind a tiny ear flap covered with feathers on one side. Second, the ear holes in their heads are shaped differently from each other. On one side, the opening is a little higher than their eyes, and on the other side, it's a little lower. Where the ear opening is higher, the facial ruff is shaped to pick up sound from below, and on the other side, where the ear opening is lower, the ruff is shaped to grab sound from above, as opposed to our ears, which are on the same level. And finally, to process what they hear, their brains are wired up to locate sounds in 3 dimensions. This is something we humans have a very hard time doing. We're good at locating sound left to right, but not up and down or behind us. Owls don't have that problem. And since they have to find prey in the dark, this is very important. We thought you'd like to see who the young barred owls were coming to visit. And the squeaking you hear in the back is Regis. We'll go meet him in a while. But the one that's on the perch here is Riffle. And down in the hutch down here is Robbie. Robbie is our oldest of our barred owls. She's 25 years old this year. Usually in the wild, barred owls don't make it that long. And in captivity, 25 years is doing really, really well for an old gal.
What about Riffle?
Riffle is actually just a few years old now. I think he's 5 years old at this point. And that is a male, and Robbie is definitely a female. She has laid eggs on occasion, but they're infertile. And there's Robbie calling for you. Barred owls are probably one of the most common of all the owls that we have in West Virginia. And you heard the typical call. And right now, you may hear other calls as well. You may hear some sort of squeak calls. That's usually from the babies, wondering where the food is or where the parents are. Usually the parents are not very far away. They eat a lot of rodents. Lots of mice, lots of chipmunks, sometimes squirrels, sometimes snakes. She was raised looking at people on the back porch of this house. They loved on her and fed her and everything, but again, it wasn't the right situation for her. So she, even though she knows that she's a barred owl, she really prefers to hang out with humans too. We've had her since she was just a few weeks old. She was actually confiscated from the people that had her by a conservation officer and got her to us. The other problem that Robbie has, though, is that she has some brain damage, because when she fell out of the tree, she had a really bad concussion The people that found her just kept her on the back porch and didn't get her any medical attention. Well, if you had a baby that had hit its head, that's a big worry for the small brain expanding into such a young head. Same thing with birds. And so she ended up with brain damage because the concussion was not treated. She is also very, very old, as I mentioned, and so she has cataracts. She can see light and dark and some shapes. So we carefully don't change anything here in the cage for her. Everything's exactly where she expects it to be, and she's doing really, really well. She and Riffle are best buddies. Riffle came to us. Riffle came to us just as he was starting to learn how to fly. He was out learning and practicing just at the same time as we got the huge floods that flooded out Clendenin a few years ago. And he was just getting his flying abilities together, and he was hit by a rescue truck going into the flooded area. Some folks right behind it saw it happen, and they were the ones that rescued him and got him to us. Unfortunately, the elbow sustained some major damage. He can fly a little bit, but not really well. So Robbie, Riffle is with us for the rest of his life. He's now right around 4 years old, and he'll live to be somewhere around 20 to 25, maybe longer. I mean, here we go with Robbie, going longer than that. Well, barred owls live in cavities, usually in trees, but it can be sometimes in outbuildings and such. But as you can tell from Robbie's call, they're pretty plentiful. Right now, the youngsters are getting out of the nest and learning how to fly, and that's what you saw at the beginning of this video, those first young flights and carefully monitored by the parents. This is the time of year when they're learning how to hunt, they're learning how to be social. You'll find barred owls in wooded areas that have larger sized trees. You will also find them on the edges of woodlands where they're going out to hunt somewhere in the open areas sometimes. It's very common to find them in towns and cities. They'll use the towns and cities areas to go hunting for mice. Why not? They also eat some small birds on occasion, so when the barred owls are out, the songbirds, particularly during breeding season, are not happy to see them at all. So they'll actually get mobbed by the songbirds. That's one way you can find barred owls in the springtime, as a matter of fact, is keep your ears open. If you hear mobbing calls, lots of calls from little tiny birds in one particular area, go ahead and check it out. And if you've got binoculars, use them. You may find that there's a barred owl hunkering down, or maybe a red-tailed hawk hunkering down, while all the young small birds are saying, "Get away, get away!" And you can see how the feathers come up around the mouth. If you've ever tried to call to somebody from a distance away, you'll see some people sometimes put their hands around their mouth to make their voices louder and project exactly to an area. That's exactly what those feathers are doing. Just like putting your hands around your mouth to project your voice out.